Is it wise to give hot takes on current events? That's the question we'll be answering in this episode of Thinking Christianly. Hello, this is Dr. Todd, and greetings from beautiful East Tennessee. At the time of this recording, football season is about to kick off, and our beloved Volunteers will be running through the T at Neyland Stadium here in just a few days. And as such, the sports talk radio stations are chirping and alive with interaction and discourse. And as usual, at the beginning of every football season, in every college town, there's always a player or two that gets in trouble, and there's always plenty to talk about related to said player. And will he play? Will he not play? What's the coach going to do? How does that affect our season? So on and so forth. As a counselor who's done this a long time, I'm really quite intrigued with some of the opinions espoused by those behind the microphone, not from a sports perspective as much as from a counseling perspective. Now, I'm not saying that individuals that work in sports talk radio need mental health counseling any more than we pastors do. However, we live in a culture where the hot take is the soup du jour. It's the go-to move. And for those of you who don't know what a hot take is, I don't have it defined, but it seems to me that a hot take is an opinion that is passionately presented without really being thought through very well. There's a certain situation going on here in my hometown of Knoxville right now, where we're discussing a domestic assault situation with a player and a girlfriend. And, we don't have all the information. But it's really interesting because in our current climate, what I notice is that even folks that don't profess to believe, they do have a law that they abide by. There's a moral code that's being espoused. What I'm hearing over most of the airwaves are things like, if you put your hands on a woman, you need to be gone. That's all she said. Now, it's okay to smoke weed, though. That's the other thing the same judge was rendering. So what's interesting to me as a counselor, as a psychologist, as a pastor, is upon what basis does one ground his or her morals to form that opinion. Let me say something else about opinions. I know we live in a postmodern world, but there is such a thing as a bad opinion. And that's not necessarily an opinion that disagrees with me, for instance, but it's an opinion that is not supported by logic, reason, facts, or evidence, which hence most hot takes are not. However, it seems like most of those that are on the radio, as far as sports talk in our region, and I think nationally this is probably true, they do follow there is a code. It's almost a culture it's an honor culture, which I do appreciate. It's a chivalrous culture. We should not put our hands on women. I totally agree with that, by the way. At the same time, though, I think it's important that we think through there's more to the story here, most likely. It's foolish. He who gives an answer before he hears, it is folly and shame to him, Proverbs tells us. Proverbs also tells us that the plans in a man's heart are like deep water, but a man of understanding will draw them out. And I think it would be really helpful and insightful if those behind the mic in some of these on some of these radio shows, these call-in shows, and these podcasts, if they would be a little more responsible with finding out a few more facts and understand the overall story of what's going on before they start so passionately espousing a point of view. How often is it that we see individuals being crucified in the press or in the media, and it's only because not all the facts are out. Now, I know I may be sounding like I am some sort of men's rights advocate, and I'm not at all. It's just that I've worked with couples in distress, for instance, for 18 years, and it never ceases to amaze me that there's always two sides to every story. And it's usually a complex interplay of relational interactions that lead to whatever happened. And so understanding that both of them are fallen sinners, one of the things we run into is a victim narrative. And when you run into a victim narrative, what happens is if you have a victim, then you automatically need a victimizer to make the narrative make sense. And the problem there is do you realize that sometimes people lie? I think we saw that in the Kavanaugh hearings, for instance. But it's always important to get to the truth of what happened before we start espousing an opinion. Then we can logically work through what needs to happen or what we think needs to happen and support it with evidence. I just think that's so vital, and I think that's missing in many of our shoot from the hip, soundbite, radio show situations. Well, I hope that this has at least clarified at least my thinking on it. I also hope that if you find yourself listening to these, because I love listening to these. These are in our hometown. This is a great service that they do for our community. We need to make sure that we listen carefully before we sound off without understanding more of the facts. Because if we do, it makes us, when all the facts do tend to come out, it makes us look foolish. Well, listen, God bless. I hope this has been helpful, and we'll talk again soon.